Welcome to the Kingdom Creative Podcast, your number one resource for Christian content creators who have a heart for ministry and a call to business. This idea of Kingdom Creative was birthed from a need that I seen from somebody who has over 20 years of experience in ministry, doing all different sorts of things. I seen a need in my own life, and I also seen a need that I feel like I was called to serve, to fill. And that need was biblical leadership for creative entrepreneurs. Now, what I've noticed in my years, and you know, I tell this to people all the time, like I'm not an exhaustive resource. I just have a limited experience. This is what I've seen. Maybe you've seen it differently. That's fine. You know what I mean? This is just based upon my limited, interactions in life. And also to talking with over 100 people probably on this subject. The idea is that creatives, I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to throw stones or I don't want to, attack something, but there's a hierarchy that takes place within the way that God does things. And when you're connected to the hierarchy, when you're connected to the way he does things, then you're blessed and you will experience the good fruit of all that he says is available to you. And so with that being said, maybe you come from a church background or maybe you don't, maybe you believe this or maybe you don't, but I'm speaking specifically to the ones that understand the background. They understand the hierarchy. They understand the order of things. There's a huge need for them to be ministered to. And so that's what Kingdom Creative is. Really, it was birthed out of a need and also an identity. I am a Kingdom Creative myself. That is what I do. That is how I operate my business. And so I wanted to create messaging and content and ministry really to those that are creative entrepreneurs, but also have a heart for ministry, have a heart for the things of God, and ultimately feel a burden to do something that you were created to do. And so I know that from my own experience, I've wrestled with a lot of different things in this area of purpose, this area of being free from fear and worry, and really just going after everything that God has for me. It's such a fascinating topic to me, this idea of purpose and this idea of doing what you were created to do. And here's the reason why it's so fascinating is because you don't have to go far for somebody to tell you what they hate. You don't have to travel far for somebody to tell you about how they had a bad experience or what's negative or what could, you don't have to go far to hear the criticisms of life. But interesting enough, when you ask those same people, what is it that you want? Most of them can't tell you. And if they can tell you, most of them are not doing the things that they say that they want. So it kind of leaves you in this weird place of like, we're always complaining about not living the life that we were called to live and not doing the things that we were created to do. And, oh, it's another day, it's Monday, like all these types of things where we just dread our lives. And yet very, very few people, at least from my experience, once again, limited experience, very few people are actually doing anything about it. And that just fascinates me. I look at that and I don't know if it's the way I was wired or what it is, but it just fascinates me. Like here we have this large topic that we literally have revolved around, like our lives revolve around this topic in a negative way, but very few of us are actually doing anything to change it. And so it's because of this, I don't know what you want to call it, this conundrum or whatever it is, this fascination is I feel like, no, I think I'm supposed to do something about it. Not only am I supposed to do something about it for me, but I'm also supposed to do something about it for the people that I was called to serve. And so that really in a nutshell is in fact Kingdom Creative. That's what Kingdom Creative is, and that's why part of it has been so hard for me to nail down. Because is it just creativity? No. Is it just ministry? No. Is it just business? No. It's an amalgamation of all of those things. And trying to synthesize that into a single focus is incredibly, incredibly difficult. It's not just me. I see it everywhere with every brand, every person. It's one of the hardest things to do. And here's why. Here's why. It goes back to the original point, is because that depends on what you want. And like I said, most of us cannot say what it is that we want. We can say certain things that what we think we want. I want to make more money. I want to be married. I want to have kids. I want to, but those are not things that actually change you as a person. Like, you don't need to have a kid to understand what it means to be a father. Like, those are excuses for what you really want underneath that. And what is it that you really want underneath that? Guess what? Most of us can't tell us. And so it leads me to a very profound scripture that I literally use to build my business around. I've built my life around this principle. I've prayed and requested to be more like this verse. And I think that this verse has tremendous insight for how we could succeed in life and in purpose and in everything that we do. And that verse is found, it's in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5, and it says this: "The purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out." The purpose that exists inside your heart, according to the Bible, the scripture, is like deep water, which means, guess what? It's supposed to be the way that it is, where people don't know what it is that they want. People can't understand. They don't know when you ask them, they get all confused. They're doing different things. It's actually intended to be like that. Like, there's a purpose that exists inside of your heart that is like deep water. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't reach it. Sometimes you wonder if it's actually even true. But a person of understanding, a man of understanding, knows how to draw it out. And so what I've realized in my whole career and everything that it is that I do, including ministry, including business, including creativity, sales, marketing, whatever it is that I've ever done, that scripture right there has been the sole focus of the person that I want to be. I want to be a person of understanding that knows how to draw that out. And just think about this for a minute. Think about this for a minute. And this is literally like the crux of what Kingdom Creative is. It's advanced training for people that are really just willing to go all out in what it is that God has told them to do. I mean, there's really not a better way to explain it, or at least I haven't really synthesized that part yet. But listen to this, right? If it's true that there's a deep part of our heart, every person's heart, that's like deep waters and we can't get to it, and we're all groaning and complaining and frustrated and living life of defeat and all this kind of stuff, addiction, abuse, all different kind of stuff, simply because we simply just can't get to that part of our heart, of our purpose. Like, think about that for a minute. If that is in fact true, then tell me this: how valuable would be the person that knows how to get to it? How valuable would that person be to me, right? Like, I think it goes without saying that that's an incredibly valuable person. That right there is a skill like none other. That is a skill that can interpret the depths of a person's heart and draw it out so that they can see it. That right there is exactly what it means to be a kingdom creative. That's it right there. Like, I do have another scripture for kingdom creative that is very near and dear to my heart and has been really the champion of a lot of what I'm doing, is Ephesians 2:10, that we are God's workmanship. We are Christ's workmanship. We are a product, a poema, a poem, an expression of Christ, created in his image, created in the image of God, created in the image of a creator, right? Like, this whole one scripture right here, to me, has like the whole formula for your existence. To do good work, not just isolated works of charity, but to do good work, to be an example of everything that you do it in the honor of God. Everything that you do it with a level of excellence. Everything that you do, you're just on another level. It doesn't even have to be like a higher level. It's just another level. This dude's just different. He's connected to a different source. He's just doing good work. And I don't know, it's weird. I don't understand it or whatever, but it's just good work. I like watching this stuff or hearing what he says or whatever the case is, right? Like, doing good work, being a person that is known for doing good work. It just does good work, right? And once again, this kind of, little subreddit, underneath here is basically like, If you're a person that is known for doing good work, will people want to hire you? Yes, they will. So therefore, your good work actually ties into your commerce in the marketplace. It ties into the product or service that you sell. It's an extension of who you are, because who wants to pay for bad work? So if you do good work, you're going to be a valuable person and people will want to pay you for your good work. That's a business. That's a business. So anyways, that's a whole separate little thing, but created to do good work. And here's the kicker, which he prepared for in advance so that we should walk in it. Like, this was already created before you were created. And it was created before you were created for one reason, just one reason. And that reason is that you would walk in it. That's the whole formula right there. Like, especially as a creative entrepreneur, as a person that's a kingdom creative, like, this is the design and the prototype and the template that God created you with. So how much more so could you take the same template that created you in the image of God and use that to create everything that you create? Like, it doesn't get no more laid out. It doesn't get no more formulaic. You know what I mean? It's like, it's right there. So then it's up to us to search the word and search our heart and communicate with God and allow God to show us and define to us these areas in our life. And then he shows us and he equips us and he brings us through an experience. And then we do exactly what it is that he said we would do. And that's a son with whom he is well pleased, right? Just think about it. We have all these metrics for success. We have all these metrics for, you know what success really is? And let me just tell you this. This is the kingdom creative version of success. Success is maturity. It's just maturity. It's reaching the intended point that you were created to reach. So for example, if an orange tree creates oranges, it is successful. It is matured. If it's worried about not creating apples and it's sad that it hasn't created an apple or a grape, then guess what? That's not success for the orange tree. The orange tree is successful when the orange tree produces orange trees. And very much in the same way, your success is contingent upon doing what he said for you to do, is doing and becoming who he designed you to be. So let me just take this one step further, because this is something that I'm extremely passionate about. Let me just take this one step further, right? Like, because I come from a long line of trauma issues, right? Like, however you want to call it, dysfunction. I come from a long line of that, and I've seen it in so many different ways. And I currently still see it in so many different ways. Part of what I do is I actually go into prisons and do media inside of prison. So I have conversations. I get to talk with people that are serving multiple life sentences and all kind of crazy stuff, and from different backgrounds, and there are all kind of crazy conversations. And at the core of it, when you break it all down, it's simply just humanity. We will often assign certain things in our life, or we will say certain things about ourselves or our situation or our circumstance that align with our trauma. In other words, it's a story that's being told and it makes sense in the progression of the story. For example, right? Many of us grew up without fathers. I was one that grew up without a father. And I told myself a story for a period of time. And that story served me well every time something popped up that validated that story. See, this is why I believe this. And this is why I feel this, because of this. It all made sense. In the very same way, all of us, in some way or another, are walking around with a faulty story. There's a part of our story that's not exactly true. There's a part of our story that hasn't really been vetted. You know what I mean? Like, it hasn't really actually been proven. It's just something that we've always agreed with, and it's something that we've justified and found justification along the path of our life, but it's actually not something that is legitimately true. In other words, if you asked another person, they would say, I don't know. I don't know. You can clearly say, like, am I tall? Am I short? Am I black? Am I Mexican? Am I Asian? Like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. But there's certain aspects of our story that are not so easy to understand. In other words, am I an unlovable person? Am I someone who can't be trusted? Do people just not like me? See, all of those types of things, or am I really, imposter syndrome, right? Like, am I really good enough? Do I really have enough? Maybe I need to get more. Maybe I need to be more. Maybe I need to make more. Like, all of these kind of things are unvalidated stories that we've told ourselves. And here's where it gets real dangerous. And once again, this is really going back to the idea of Kingdom Creative. Here's where it gets dangerous is when we start believing those stories and those things above what it is that God said that we are. And here's why it's so dangerous. Because if you do that, you will never walk in the purpose in which you were created, because you will think, I wasn't created for that purpose. And what do you think? Like, I don't like to always like just jump in the mind of Satan or but people are like, hey, if you were the devil, right? Like if you were Satan and you were trying to trick the people of God, what are some things that you would do? Well, I would probably try to discredit the thing that they have that's greatest that God gave them and try to make that small and insignificant and irrelevant and things like that. That's probably what I would try to do, is just let them know, hey, you ain't got no power. Oh, you think you do, but you don't. Right? Like you think no, he wasn't really telling the truth. You don't believe all that, do you? I would try to discredit the truth. No, it's better for you to just think this. Doesn't it make more sense this? Like, come on, bro, look at where you came from. You don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have that. What makes you think that? Like, come on, it makes sense. It aligns with your story. Doesn't it feel good? Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. It feels good to be validated, right? But there's a danger. There's a huge danger in our lives. And once again, this is where a lot of us are, where the feeling of validation is more important than the excitement of truth. Let me say that again. This dangerous place where the feeling of validation, the feeling that it makes you feel like secure and safe and strong, is more important than the excitement of everything that God has for you, of the truth, of what's actually real, of where you're actually going, of what you actually have, of the journey that you're about to be on, of all of the potential that you have inside of you that has never been realized, all of the growth that you could have, all of the dreams that still could happen. When you trade that feeling of safety and comfort and validation for the excitement of what God has for you, you have now just traded your birthright. You've traded your inheritance. You said, listen, man, I'll tell you what, I don't like this feeling that I'm living in this earth. It's horrible. First of all, once again, that's from an unchecked story, right? You're feeling those ways because the story actually hasn't even checked out. You're just believing it because it feels good. And then what that does is it creates a cycle. And inside of you, that cycle is validating you and giving you a false pseudo sense of security. It's making you feel like, yeah, man, see, I told you. Yeah, I feel right. I feel in charge. I feel safe. I feel secure because I know what's going to happen, because I know what's always happened. I can tell the future. I can read behaviors. I'm suspicious of everything, right? Like all of this kind of stuff. And you're trading it in for that security, that pseudo empowerment. And all along, over here on this side, the Lord has created you for much more. And even deep down inside your heart, there's a faint whisper that says, you know what? I was created for more than this. And that's what's almost kind of feeding this narrative, this story, is that itch that you can't scratch inside of you that's saying, I know that I was made for more. I try to cover it up with certain things. I try to overlook it. I try to not pay attention to it, but I can't get rid of it. There's a little itch inside of me that I just can't scratch. And it keeps you stuck trying to get more security, trying to get more in control, trying to get more aware and feel empowered. But really, the answer is over here. And the answer is simply trusting and being prepared and being ready and willing to go where God has called you to go. And let me just tell you, back to this idea of us having a purpose inside of ourselves that we can't quite explain, that's too deep for us to see or to navigate or to know or to understand. Like, it creates inside of us a dependence. And I think that that's actually the reason why God made it like that. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's something that we all say we want, but it's something that very few of us can actually get to. It seems hard. It seems challenging. It actually seems fake, unrealistic. But let me just tell you that it's not. It's not, but there's an overwhelming allegiance to this self-empowerment that needs to go before you can actually be willing to grab what he's told you to grab. And let me just tell you, like, I'm just telling you this from the truth. Those that know me know this is true, that's actually the story of Kingdom Creative. That my story is that there was this itch inside of me, this depth that I couldn't reach, that I wanted and desired to do something with my life and with my gifts and with my knowledge and experience that I kept on. I couldn't stop talking about it, but yet I was almost like not empowered to do it. And it was because I gave all of this energy, this attention, this focus to the feeling of feeling empowered versus actually being excited about the journey. Because it's not until you get excited. Let me just tell you this. I did a whole study on this. And so I don't really have time to, you're just going to have to check this on your own and see if it resonates with you or not. But there's a really powerful principle in what we would call expectation. Now, this is interesting because, first of all, it sounds very new age right off the top. Like if you believe a certain something, but here's the thing, you can't deny as a believer that that's what we're called, believers, right? That faith and that belief and thought play a huge role in the way that God speaks to us and the way that we live out, destiny and purpose and all these kind of things, right? Like you can't deny that. You can't separate those two. So with that being said, there's a huge principle that revolves around this idea of expectation. How many times have you ever felt like if you expected something, you got it? Well, that's actually not by accident. There's a lot of things that are hardwired, either whether it's you just observing it. I mean, it gets really deep, but here's the idea, is that those who expect good things will usually discover good things. Now, I know it's not rocket science, but it is in the way that we still continue to behave. Even though we all say like, oh, yeah. If you expect good things, you'll probably get good things, right? If nothing else, no magical, no spiritual stuff, but just if nothing else, that you're probably going to get what you expect. Like you're probably going to look for what it is you're expecting to see. I mean, it's not anything crazy, right? But yet, even though we know that, we still don't do it. We still don't do it. We still expect negative things, hoping to see something good. And so even just this idea of expectation is a huge spiritual idea that is worth considering in our own lives. What are we expecting in life? Are we expecting people to reject us and then we're surprised when we're rejected? Are we expecting people to not like us when we go into a new room? Are we expecting to be judged only to find that we were judged? This goes back to this whole kind of idea about being deep water, this whole idea of there's a purpose inside of you and you're being manipulated to use all of your gifts and all of your spiritual DNA to use it against yourself instead of using it for yourself. And here's the trip, right? And this is another fascinating part that is really hard to wrap my head around. And I understand it intellectually, right? Is this idea of like, you have all these gifts and you're using it against yourself. You should use it for yourself. Immediately, that's going to trigger a bunch of people. You're putting yourself as God. It's not all about you. It's not all about yourself. It's not, it's not about your comfort and all this kind of stuff. You know what it is about? It is about God doing something, creating something, giving something, giving someone something, and then expecting something to happen. You know what I mean? Like he created you and he told you why he created you. There's not come on, right? And so, but we're living in these other things and then we're justifying it by saying, well, at least, I'm not selfish. No, that's actually the most selfish thing you can do. You don't realize it, but that's the most selfish thing that you can do is take what's not yours and own it and make decisions on it as if it's yours. It's not yours. Think about it, right? Like as a believer, as a Christian, like your life is not yours, is it? If you really say, you know what, man, I follow Jesus, I follow Christ, you've died and you're gone and you're a new creation and you don't belong to yourself and you don't dictate anything and you're not thinking like all you are given, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to downplay it. Like, it's a great thing. What you've been given is the responsibility to take care of who you are and whose you belong to. And who you are now is a son or daughter of God. And who you are now is not your final decision maker of your life. Who you are now is a new creation that thinks differently about everything around you. You have a new entire brain in your head. But yet most of us are still functioning and operating like the person that's supposed to be dead. And here's once again, I know there's probably a ton of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is for comfort. It's for comfort. It's because you're trying to avoid fear. You're trying to avoid change. You're trying to avoid this process in life that has a tendency of pulling you through that old identity. It's like it's pulling you through everything that kind of has a grip on you, everything that has a hold on you. And so it's very difficult. And it's something that most people will say that they want, but very few people will actually pursue, will actually like sacrifice for that, will actually do something about it. And so that's what Kingdom Creative is really addressing all of these kind of things, is really having conversations in a lot of these topics and arenas, and is the idea of cultivating something, is growing something, is laboring something, is something has been birthed through pain and discomfort and hardship and not getting it right and still not getting it right and not knowing what I'm doing and fear, but it's based on the excitement of what it is that God said that I will do. So I hope you join me on this journey, and I hope that at least somewhere along the way, you get encouraged by something, you get inspired by something, you get motivated by something God blesses you in some way. That would be my hope. And I know that it'll happen because God has already told me it'll happen. And that's exactly what I expect to happen.